All right, so on this tutorial, we're going to be learning about hotspot mapping in the software GeoDa. This is hopefully a more pleasant alternative to QGIS. It can't quite do as much, but hopefully it'll be a little bit friendlier on some of your systems. I think it's a pretty cool little package, actually. So it's just another software program for doing GIS analysis, just like we did with ARC, just like if you've experimented with QGIS a little bit. So a lot of the core concepts that you've learned already will follow you into this lesson. So, for example, we still are using shapefiles. Shapefiles are still maps with data attached to them in the form of attribute tables, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to just kind of walk you through from start to finish how you conduct kind of some simple hotspot analysis. So when you fire up the program, you should just get either a blank bar or a page that shows you which file you want to open. So I want to start a new project, and I want to open up. In this case, I'm using it's a crime data set of San Francisco, the city of San Francisco census tracts. So I'm going to open up that shapefile. So basically, here's where you're going to tell the program where you want to go look. So I want to go find a shapefile. And I have saved it into this folder called SF Crime. Just like with ArcGIS, when you wanted to go find, where your data is, wherever you saved it, so on your desktop or whatever, go find your shapefile and open it. So then you should get this map that is the census tracts of San Francisco. So the next step is, remember when we just started off with like the California counties shapefile, and all it was just the counties, and there was no data behind it. So we attached data, we joined a table to it, and we can do that with GeoDa as well. So the next step is to join table of data to this shapefile. Okay. Um, so to do that, you go up to table, merge, and then let's go find the data set that you want to merge. So I have my data set saved as a .csv. That's like a version of Excel, right? So you can either upload an Excel or a .csv. I want to upload my .csv file, and it's in that folder that I just saved on my desktop. It's called Crime. And this is a data set that is laid out where each row is a census tract. And then it gives me information on the number of vandalisms that have occurred, robbery, drugs, etc. So I want to join that in. This is not latitude longitude data, so I'm just going to join it based on it as it is. Uh, in my data set, the first row is the name of the variable. So make sure this top one is checked yes, and then click OK. Okay. So now basically I'm saying, okay, I want to merge this outside Excel file to this map. So what do I want to join them by? What's the common denominator? So in this case, each census tract, each of these little blocks has an ID number. And that ID number matches up to the ID number in my Excel file. Okay. So I want to join the GeoID by the GeoID in my table. Okay. And then these are all the variables that I want to join. Okay. So you can pick all of them. Maybe I'm just interested in joining, let's see, I just want to look at like car theft. But again, these are all the different variables that you can bring over into your data set, okay? So let's merge it. And just like with GIS, you should really notice like nothing at this point because all the magic has happened behind the scenes. So a way to check to see what is kind of under the hood here, what the attribute table looks like, is just go up and click on this table button. Okay, so this you can see is, let's see. So if I click see this this row number 3, this GeoID, it corresponds to this census tract. And you can go across and see all the data that's attached to it. So I've already been kind of practicing joining data. So there's a little bit here. You can see there's the car theft variable at the very end that I just joined. Okay. So in this census tract, there were 2 incidents of car theft. Okay. So here's my my attribute table. Again, that's where all the data is. And now I'm at the point where I can make a choropleth map visualizing, let's say, the distribution of car theft. So go up to where it says map. There's a whole bunch of different options about how you can make a map. Okay. Let's just say I want to break it into like categories of like 4. So 4 groups of car theft. And here's all the variables that I could possibly map. I'm going to go down to the one I just joined, car theft. And boom, simple as that. So 4 categories because I selected the number 4. If you did 5 or 6, it would be more. Showing you from less to more where there are car thefts in San Francisco. So this is your choropleth map. Okay. If you wanted to go like save this to a PowerPoint presentation or a Word file or a Google Sheet or something, you can just right click it, copy the image to a clipboard, or you can save it. Okay. And then you can go work with it later. We don't have as much flexibility with this program as we do with ArcGIS to make really kind of presentation ready maps. So like with the north arrow and the scale bar and all that kind of stuff. So all we can really do is go and copy this legend as well and go bring that over and kind of do our best to kind of put together a map. But the important thing we're going to learn here is what's coming up next, and that is the hotspot map. So this is just a description of where crimes are occurring. We want to run this through these special statistics that basically show us like where is there high risk statistically of getting your car stolen. So obviously there's some kind of sporadic risk in these areas, but it looks like it might be concentrated up here or here. There's some kind of random spots around here. Uh, Basically, by doing a hotspot maps, it gets rid of all the clutter and just shows us where there is high risk areas statistically where we should like be concentrating. So like if I'm a police officer, I want to do this next step so I'm not like running all over the city and I can really like focus on one area in particular. So the first thing we need to do is essentially look at creating what's called a spatial weights matrix. And that sounds really confusing because it kind of is. But essentially, what you're going to be doing is you're not doing, and that's why you have this, fancy software. Uh, the program is going to be looking at, let's say, this census tract, and you can see that it's pretty high risk for car theft. Um, Basically, what it's going to be doing is saying, okay, what is the number of cars stolen here? And then what are the number of cars stolen around it, its neighbors? And then what are the number of cars stolen compared to these zip codes or census tracts? And it does that for every single combination of census tracts, basically saying uh, it's going to assign more importance and more value and more weight to census tracts around it. Okay. So all of these have more influence on this census tract and what happens in it. And just think of real life, right? Like these 2 census tracts are probably going to look pretty similar if you're on the ground than like this one and like this one. Okay. So it is basically weighting distance. It's taking distance into account. So it's going to make a note of the fact that this little guy way out here is also high risk, but because it's so far away, it's going to have less impact on this. Okay, so You could do that by hand if you wanted. I wouldn't recommend it because SPSS wrong software. GeoDa can do it for you. Okay, so here's that step. Okay, and again, you can't skip this or you won't be able to calculate the hotspot map. Okay, W for weights. You need to create this kind of matrix of weights. Okay, and again, this isn't too painful. It's just a few extra button clicks. All the hard work is being done by the computer. Okay, you need to create a new, basically, weight calculation. Okay, I want to go over here and say, okay, Mr. GeoDa, I want you to add an ID variable, whatever it comes up with, fine, and click create. Save your weight file. For whatever reason, it's called a .gal. Doesn't matter. Just go and save it to whatever folder you're working from, your lab folder. Okay, and I already did this, so I'm just going to replace the one I just did. Okay, don't worry about all this other stuff. Doesn't matter. Push close, close. It's all been done. Okay, that was it. Okay, it just did all of that calculation for you and saved it into that .gal file. Okay, so now we're on to the fun part. Hotspot map. To do that, you're going to go up to space. There are a bunch of different types of hotspot maps. We're going to go with this one, local G. Kind of a fun name. It is named after the guy who invented it. His name is Geddes, so it is the local G. It's not that cool guy who hangs out on the corner of one of the census tracts, right? Okay, so local G. I'm interested in measuring car theft, and the weights variable down here, select the one that you just created. Okay, it should come up automatically, but that's what that means. I want to look for a cluster map. So just this button and click OK. Boom. That's it. So you can see where there are statistically elevated high-risk areas. Those are in red. And you can see they kind of correspond to these areas that you thought they would. And then these areas in blue are actually low risk. So you're at actually lower risk of having your car stolen if you're in this area compared to the red. If you're in the area in white, it means that basically your risk is not any higher or lower. It's just kind of regular or average. Okay. So this is really helpful in this case if you're like law enforcement and you want to go target certain areas, or in our case, if we are investigating health problems, maybe this is COVID-19 and we want to say, well, what is going on over here that's not going on over here, right? And then I can maybe compare things like, oh, I don't know, the amount of air pollution that happens in these census tracts compared to the amount of air pollution that happens in these census tracts, right? If one is bigger than the other, that might support my hypothesis, okay? And just like with this map, you can save it, save the legend, and that's really it. So that is the hotspot mapping. It is a very common and effective, relatively simple tool, but it gives you quite a bit of information that I think you'll find helpful. Okay, and then what's kind of cool about this is you can compare census tracts. Okay, so that's it in a nutshell. So when you are, one final note, when you're kind of reporting this stuff, have your choropleth map, and then you typically want to basically have your hotspot map kind of near it or next to it. Okay, because you can see that they both tell you the whole story, right? It's not that there is no car theft in this area. It's just that it's more kind of random and sporadic. Okay. So you always want to put these two guys like kind of next to each other in your results. Okay. So that's hotspot mapping in GeoDa. Enjoy.